Hello, everyone. My name is Saurabh, and we're back with another episode of Freshly Pressed. Today, we have with us Hound, the amazing author and artist of Commander Rao and We Love You. So, before we get into the thick of the things, an introduction about yourself, Fel. Um,
Uh, Hi everybody, I'm Fel. I'm a comic artist and writer. Probably best known as you've heard for creating Commander Rao and We Love You. I also really like to draw sword ladies and apparently abs, according to some people. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. How did you? My first question is, how did you get into comics? How did you s- your how did your love for comics grow? And did you when did you start reading? And when did you feel that you wanted to start creating?
So when I was little, my dad had these like old like Chinese comics from Hong Kong that he read when he was a kid, so he gave them to me. Unfortunately, I can't actually read Chinese, but I was just looking at the pictures and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool. This is really funny." So I really loved like, reading cartoons and comics as a kid, but I never really got super into them until I think the end of high school. That's when I picked up Batwoman Elegy by Greg Rucka and J.H. Williams, and that's a beautiful book. Like it's mind
Nice.
blowing. Layouts are so cool, and I think that was kind of the moment I went, "Wow, like this is so beautiful. I want to read more." So then I just, I read all the other Batwoman comics, and I read a bunch of DC comics. From there, I went to Marvel, and that's kind of how I got started in reading comics.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When did you realize you wanted to start creating comics, though?
Oh, right. So I've always been a writer. I really liked writing, and throughout high school, I wrote a lot. I never really considered making comic books, to be honest, until at that point, as I said, I picked up Batwoman Elegy, and I was like, this is so cool. And I don't know, I thought you could do so much with comic books, just looking at the layouts and how beautiful, like the visuals and the narrative mesh together. So I was like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to tell my stories. The problem is I couldn't draw like back in high school. I only really
I
started
don't
learning
believe
to
that now.
yeah. I only started like learning how to draw like after that moment. And then I just kind of taught myself over the years and yeah, slowly went from there, slowly tried to dabble in more comics. It wasn't until I think like 2020 or like the end of 2019 that I really like got good enough to try making a comic book myself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, yeah. What are like some of your like biggest inspirations as an artist? Obviously, Batwoman is one of them. You just mentioned that. But apart from Batwoman, what are some of the things that you love? Some of the artists that you love, and their work has obvious influence on what you do. So, who are those artists, and what are the ones that you love the most?
Yeah, so other than J.H. Williams, of course, I really loved Claire Rowe. She did an indie book called Welcome Back, and I think she did some work on like Batgirl comics a few years back, but she has like really clean ink work that I used to really love. So I love her art. And I really like Phil Noto. He does like a lot of really cool Star Wars covers, but I find his style, I don't know, it's just so pretty. I just really
Yeah,
like his art.
yeah.
But yeah, I also actually am inspired by a lot of kind of like fan artists on the internet because I grew up on like Tumblr and fandom and all that. So there's a couple fan artists who really inspired my art. I don't know any of their real names, but their online handles is like Marceline2174 who draws a lot of Mass Effect art. There's an artist called Banish Shadow who draws a lot of like really cinematic buff woman and it's really good art. So honestly, they inspired me a lot.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think some of the fan artists are really underrated because they're not that known and not as known as the actual comic artists, but they have some incredible work under their belt, right?
Like it's such a breadth of style work, and sometimes you don't really find that in, like, I guess, commercialized comic books.
Yeah, sometimes when I go to like comic conventions and I see fan art and I'm like, why doesn't this make into like a comic book cover, or like, even for like some panels within a comic book, why don't these people get a chance to work in that, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I mean, I guess like Marvel and DC have like a house style. I think they've started to expand that house style in recent years, but it's always nice to see, like, other people's interpretations of those characters.
That's amazing. Uh, that's slight segue into the next question then. What kind of characters do you like to write?
Oh, off the bat, I think it's known that I really like to write about queer characters, especially queer women. Um, yeah, I like people with big swords and big weapons. I like to design characters with lots of big armor and weapons. That's just kind of what I'm about. But yeah, I mean, aside from like design wise, I like a good character with a tragic backstory. I think that's really evident in the
Yep.
kind of right. Yeah, just something compelling. Just makes them want you to know more and cry with them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And needless to say, this book will make a lot of people cry. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously some of the things that you said are very obvious from your work, and also from your online presence, because you like, I know you like Gundam a lot, and big armored weapons are are a big part of Gundam. I mean, they are Gundam. So yeah, that's awesome. And why do you like writing sad books? They're really good, but they're really sad, They make people emotional, and they still have a good, warm, gooey feeling in some of them. Like "And We Love You" is actually full of like really heartfelt moments, and I don't know, like this something about the story that like it's very beautiful and very heart-wrenching. Um, Apart from being tragic, it's just beautiful in its own way, So, what makes you write like these sad stories?
Well, first off, thank you for the kind words about the book. I think with these sad stories, a lot of it is just honestly kind of inspired by like real life events. I think a lot of it comes from, I guess, like personal feelings on certain subjects. But another part of it is really that I think looking back at the books that I guess remember the most, or books that were really memorable to me, were kind of the books that brought out like a lot of emotion that I, cried over, that I spent days thinking about. So that's actually kind of what I want to do with my comics, whether it be comedy or tragedy, as long as I think it becomes memorable and brings out some sort of memorable reaction in people. I just happen to suck at comedy, so I tend to go for tragedy.
That's fair. But yeah, to be honest, like some of the pages where Julie's dying, and when she starts seeing her last moments, they're so creative, so like um I'm trying to find the right word for it. They're very effective. They're
Thank
very
you.
effective in evoking an emotion. They're like the art in some of those panels is just mind blowing, because they portray the exact feeling that you should be feeling for the character. So yeah, kudos to that.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, and it ties the story perfectly with Commander Rao, because obviously it gives a lot of motivation to the character, and it's obviously the character's backstory, um, while not being the full backstory, right? Um, cool. I did find a few things in there. Obviously, you're obviously a big Star Wars fan. The if I don't know if I'm correct or not, but the design of mech was somewhat inspired by AT-STs. I don't know if
So
I'm right.
I actually pulled the mech as like a reference from I think one of the uh I don't know, it was like a 3D model that I just kind of like took as a reference. So I think that 3D model was probably inspired by AT&T's. Um, but the mech was actually the one in And We Love You, at least, was actually, I think, my friend Jeremy Simser, who drew like a almost like a prologue story to And We Love You. So he was actually the one who designed the mech. So then I just like kind of copied his design and then used it for this story.
Nice. Nice. Even like the Captain America references, I think the villains do look like a lot like Hydra villains, and like even the uniforms and the way they look, their headgear and stuff like that. They look a lot like Hydra.
Yeah, I like Captain America, definitely a big inspiration for these types of stories, and I felt like it would be kind of cool to have these kind of characters have sort of like their own hero figure to look up to, but in sort of tragic way, because obviously they don't end up like a heroic Captain America, and things don't really go that well.
That's awesome. What yeah, cool. So again, segueing into another question, what kind of characters from pop culture do you like usually? And some of their traits, what inspires you as a writer when you look at a character in a movie or in an animated show?
Ooh, I like so many characters. Well, as you can see, I don't know if this is a video going to be uploaded or anything, but if you can see my wall right now, there's a giant Batwoman poster on it. So one of my favorite characters is Batwoman. Um,
Yep.
I just I don't know. I mean, other than the book being beautiful, I think she's really cool. She's really badass. Like she went through kind of a lot of stuff in her family life, and she kind of overcame it and became, this badass lady who fights crime. So to me, that was like, that is so cool. And she's queer, so like that's even more cool.
It's
But yeah,
awesome.
other characters that I really love. As you know, I'm a big fan of Gundam. There's a new Gundam show called Witch from Mercury, and it's about like, this like probably the most adorable Gundam pilot that Gundam has ever made. She has a lot of anxiety, but once she's in the mech, she's just like full of confidence. And I love that about her. I think that's so cool to have like a sort of like shy underdog character who's like secretly a badass. I
Yep.
love those kind of characters, so it's another plus. Oh
That's
my God.
great. Yeah. That's I think that's really appealing to a lot of people as well because as you know, a lot of people who read and write comics are really shy people in real life, and uh, when they hide behind some sort of mask or are in some sort of battle armor, they're like they gain more confidence because they can be the more themselves. So I guess those characters are really appealing to a lot of people, right?
Yeah, like honestly, even me, like I'm a super shy person. If you asked me 2 years ago to be on a podcast, I would be like, absolutely not. Like talking, terrifying. But now, like the more I've done them, the more it's like, oh, I actually really like this. I love talking about comics. I love talking about books. So yeah, it just takes a little nudge to come out of your shell.
That's awesome. I was actually when I asked you to be on the podcast, I was like, will she agree to be on the podcast or not? Because I like, and I totally respect when people want a caricature or some sort of avatar that represents themselves, but they don't want to show their real face. I absolutely respect that because it's their privacy and those kind of things. So, g- good on you that you're coming out of the shell and promoting your books because you deserve all the fame that's coming your way.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, sometimes it's still like, just because I'm like a massive introvert, it still takes a little bit of push to be like, oh, I have to talk to people if I want people to read my book. Hmm. But I think that's a good thing because, making comics has like made me more comfortable talking to people, made me more comfortable talking about books. So really it's just not just growth and like making comic books, but also learning how to connect with people and talking to people, which is nice.
That's awesome. And fair enough. Like if you asked me 2 years ago that I would do a podcast, I would host one, I would like, no, that's just not possible. I'll be too shy to go on YouTube and upload this to the world. But yeah, here we are.
How times change.
No, that's great. Did did you also work on the colors on this on both the books?
Yes, I drew and colored both of the books.
I absolutely sorry. So you're saying?
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I just said I drew, color, wrote it, but I did not do the lettering.
Oh, cool. I absolutely loved some of the colors and how they like the ambient feel that they bring to the book, especially those like the orange hues and the contrast of the backgrounds where the backgrounds are like blood soaked and there it has certain elements of the character's past strewn into it. The color palette of this is just so rich, despite being a similar kind of color throughout the book. Uh, what what uh, what kind of effect do you want to evoke from the colors? And did you think about it when you were writing it or creating it?
Yeah, so And We Love You, as you see it now, is actually the third time I've drawn this exact same comic. I actually drew the comic 3 times before in the past, so it's been an idea I've had for a really long time. And I think because I drew it again and again so many times, I kind of had that experimental phase where I figured out what would work best. So initially the comic was in full color, like the backgrounds, the blood memories, everything was in full color. I think the second time I redrew it, I figured if I made sort of like the background black and white and just have the blood be colors, it would be a lot more effective. So that's kind of what I went with this time. And I used a lot of like hues that were inspired by just war movies. Like in war movies, you have a lot of like, green and orange and yellow, and it's like a very nostalgic color almost. It's like a sepia color almost. So I went and played a lot with those because I think I want this book to feel nostalgic and feel like it's some aspect of the past, and it's like a warm sadness almost.
It sure does evoke that feeling. Very, very true. Uh, and uh, and I really, yeah, that's very, very true. I get that. And the contrast in some like the gray colors, even the like the panels where they're at like really blue, like there's that like dark saturated blue in some of the panels. Those contrasted with the gray ones. I think there are some pages where they're like some blue panels and some gray panels together, stacked together. I think they're really they work really well because it gives you like a good feeling of like shift in like the current situation of the character and what they were going through at that given point of time.
Yeah, like I love playing with color. So I'm very strong proponent of using color to carry those emotions and telling part of the story. Like, in the daytime, you have, the bright, the warmness, but then there are also some scenes that take place at night. So it's a lot of, a lot of blue, which is, and I think like the blue and orange really contrast because they're complementary colors. And, if you can do some like really striking lighting with them, at least I feel like those are the colors I'm most confident in.
No, I think they work really well because they do give the feeling of like obviously as I said before like they're ambient and it's ambient night and ambient day so yeah they work very well, so good work on that.
Thank you.
What so my next question would be, you partly answered that before, but what kind of uh so I love to ask this, that do you bring some sort of like your own culture, your own self into the stories and characters? And you partly answered that before, but if there's an extension of that answer, I would love to hear that. What kind of like traits of personality that you bring into your characters and stories?
Yeah, so I guess as you've noticed, the book is really sad. So I think a lot of it, as I said before, it was inspired by kind of like life events, like coping with loss and feelings of grief, and a lot of that came into play, especially when writing "And We Love You." As I said, this is a book that has been in progress for like almost 10 years. I keep coming back to it and redrawing it because it's kind of like it's a big feeling and I want to share that feeling and I want to do it right. So it took 10 years to kind of get it right. Obviously as a queer person myself, I tend to lean towards writing queer characters. I feel like you can always have more queer characters in media. So yeah. I do want to, culture wise, I'm from Hong Kong. Unfortunately I haven't really had the chance to really bring that into my stories yet, but hopefully one day.
Absolutely.
My parents proud.
One thing at a time.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it's very important for the characters to feel authentic. So, for example, your characters are queer, and that comes as an extension of your own personality. And I think that's great because that makes the character all the more authentic. When a reader reads the character, they relate to it. They're not tied in cliches because they draw from real life experiences, and like they're not stereotypes or caricatures of the usual representation of queer characters in the media. So yeah, I like to call it. It's a running theme through the podcast that I like to talk about. Like the last one was with Anas, and he mentioned about uh, creating a character who's very authentically Middle Eastern. Um, there was some other person I was talking to before, and they mentioned that they wanted to create a character who's autistic and not represented in a way that media represents autistic characters, right? So it's about claiming the narrative and creating those like realistic characters who, I mean, yeah, this is how a queer character would behave in a real world, right? Not really like most of how the representation is in the media.
Yeah, like I definitely think, the best stories come from the heart. So no matter, whether it's a tragic character or a comedic character, I think as long as people are writing, you know, authentically, I think those stories usually come out a little better than the ones where you can kind of tell that they're a little removed from what they're writing about. At least that's my perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. What should fans expect from you next after this?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's even a question I'm asking myself right now. I had a lot of plans. I don't know if any of those plans are going to come through because I have many ideas for what I want to do next, and I haven't been able to pick one yet. I can say I am working on some new projects that aren't RAW related. Um, I also have some ideas that are RAW related. It just depends what gets going first, I guess. Yeah, and I'm doing a lot of anthologies on the side as well. So, you can look out for those in the coming months and years.
We want a raw cinematic universe.
Oh, I want that too. One day.
I don't know. I see Commander Rao as a perfect antidote to John Wick for some reason. It's it's like a a female version of like a John Wick kind of character who's absolute badass, has a rich history, a tragic past, and things like that. So
Yeah, like I used to promote Commander Rao as like John Wick with grappling hook, so that's perfect
well,
of John Wick. Those movies are great. Keanu Reeves is great. If Rao ever becomes a movie, I hope he's in it. Doesn't matter what he plays.
who doesn't want Keanu Reeves in the movies, right? Absolutely. So yeah, that's great because I do want to see more of this universe. I like I'm obviously not done with Rao stories, so that's good. Um, there should be more. And I would love to see what you can explore more. Maybe a bit of mecha work, to come. Who knows?
Oh, I do. Oh, I mean, right now, because I'm really into Gundam, as some of you saw, I redesigned my own character as a Gundam. And for some reason, now I'm like, what if I just made a whole entire like Commander Rao alternate universe where everyone is a mech and it's like a Gundam universe? So I think that's what I'm kind of playing around with right now. Nothing like super official, but just kind of having fun with my characters and my world, making a bunch of AUs and just I don't know, doing something fun instead of something stressful.
That's awesome. Can I ask you to show me the most recent gunpla that you've made?
Yes, yes. It's just the Witch from Mercury stuff. Here.
Cool.
So this is the Ariel.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I have the other one, the Alfred.
Yeah,
What was that? And then there's this one, the Alfred. Yeah,
that's so cool.
thank you.
It's
And then I
really, really
pre-ordered
cool.
some more that are coming soon. Oh god, where did I put this? Put it here.
Yeah, I wish I had my collection with me because I'm actually overseas and I have all of my collection at home. Maybe next time. But
I would love to
yeah,
see them.
yeah, it's one of my favorite hobbies, to be honest.
What was the last one you built?
I the last one I built was Crossbone Gundam Mao.
Nice.
It's a bit, the sticker work on that is so hard. It's so intricate and tiny.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, but yeah, I would love to show my collection at some point when I'm back.
Built it somewhere.
Yeah, cool. We're coming close to time, but if I would let you take away and take the house and just take 5 minutes to talk about And We Love You, Commander Rao, uh, and promote the book, just take it away. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Sweet, thank you. So yeah, in closing, hi everybody. My book, And We Love You, is a 64-page one-shot about a girl who bleeds memories. It is a prequel to Commander Rao, and it is coming out from Scout Comics in February. So if you're hearing this, there is probably still time to pre-order it before February. Even if there isn't, you can always just, ask your comic book shop, see if they have the book. You can order it from the Scout web store. It's a really cool book. It's really sad. It's really queer. If you enjoy any of those things, it's probably the book for you. Also, it has two gorgeous covers. The main one by Angela Wu and the B cover by Skylar Patridge. They are beautiful. You want them on your shelf, trust me. Go Google it now if you don't see it. And yeah, and you can find And We Love You and Commander Rao both with Scout Comics, or you can ask your local comic book shop. And yeah, I hope you will enjoy the comics, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. I highly recommend the book, and please, please, please get it on Previous World and whatever local on from your local comic book shop. Please get a hard copy. Please put it on your shelves. Some of the pages in the book are just absolutely gorgeous. They're well written. It's a well written book. The action is amazing. Yeah, highly, highly recommend everything about this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right, everyone, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.